board, Monday, September 16th. Madam Clerk?
The board members who are present, please respond. Ms. Rule?
Here.
Mr. Barlow?
Here.
Ms. Gibson?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Ms. Cosby? Mrs. Burke?
Here.
Ms. Owen? Dr. Sapini? Mrs. Page?
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the roll silence.
Ms. Gibson, can you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance? You may be seated.
Good evening, I'm Ms. Page, Superintendente de RPS. Buenas tardes, yo soy la intérprete asignada del Senior Chancellor y gracias por mi servicio. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert.
The next item is the adoption of your agenda. I do not have any changes, Madam Chair.
We need a motion. Ms. Gibson?
I'd like to request an amendment to include a discussion of the physical education requirement for middle school.
There's a motion to amend the agenda to add, can you say that?
To discuss the physical education requirement for middle school.
So there is an amendment to the agenda to add discussion of physical education. Need a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Gibson and seconded by Mr. Young. Any discussion? Mr. Young?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Procedure question. We're just voting on the actual amendment.
Right, but also, okay, but we can ask that question at the appropriate time, this was added to the agenda. Whether or not the administration is prepared to provide that information to the board.
We were not prepared to do a presentation or have a discussion at length, but certainly willing to entertain questions and follow up.
So all in favor? Mr. Young?
I'm sorry, the reason I was inquiring because I also would like to propose a change or edit to the agenda. So just wanted to clarify that we're just voting on that motion. Is that correct right now?
Mr. Young, if there aren't any other
I would,
additions to the agenda, you should call the council for this motion.
I would propose that we remove the renaming of the schools and instead we prioritize conversation relevant to what we're going to do with the current Elkhart Thompson Building 1 and 2, how we're going to build those schools.
So this is a separate motion. So we'll amending the agenda to add physical education discussion to the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed?
Sorry, so we now
evening, would you like to refer that item?
Few more minutes.
Next item is item 3, public information. I have no speakers this time of the meeting.
If we have members in the audience that would like to speak at this time, please come forward, state your name, and sign in. If you are speaking as an individual, you have 3 minutes. If you are speaking on behalf of an organization, you have 5 minutes. And if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, you have one representative for that organization.
Madam Chair, school board members, and Superintendent Hammers. I'm here to, first, to thank Chair,
Please state your name and name.
I'm sorry, Vilma Seymour, with LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens. We had on September 6th, we had an opening of the Palante Tech Center, which has been developed and implemented to support the Welcome Center and RPS students, non-English speaking students. And I want to start by thanking Madam Chair, Jonathan Young, and Dr. Pat Sapini for coming by and supporting. It's a gift to you because we know that there are so many challenges on the table at the moment, and there are items such as the rezoning, the renaming schools, many things that are important. LULAC will remain focused on the mantra, every day counts, for the non-English speaking students. Today I was at George Wythe, and within 30 minutes or so, I had spoken to at least 8 or 9 students who were in 10th grade but did not understand English. They were waiting for their schedule. So I don't think that I'm exaggerating when I state this is a crisis. If we're talking about children's, students' success, we remain focused on reducing the high school dropout rates and increasing high school graduation. I'm here tonight to make a formal ask, and that is, I learned today that at George Wythe there are 2 rooms available. And I think that we could, right now we're at the Southside Community Center on the 2nd floor, and we're learning 3 weeks in, it's not accessible to the community, and there's just a lot of issues, and we have to think about transportation. We are asking for our center at no cost to you. We have spent several $1,000s in equipping this center for the students. So it's a matter of just moving. My ask would be for the room, for a phone, and I understand it's already after school programs, the bus is taken care of. So whatever I need to do, please let me know, please advise. But I absolutely need it. We want it on record, this formal ask, and if we could get it yesterday, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray Palestine Muhammad, and I am here specifically to deal with the language of institutional racism. And I come and celebrate 400 years of the indigenous American African people being here, starting in 1619 up to 2019. And in 2019, we're still defining the American European, pagan, Christian, and Jew as the white American, and the indigenous American African as the black American. And so I want to share with you a dictionary definition of the words black and white. Because as educators, we know that it's words that shape the mind. It's words that lift or take away the self-esteem of children. So we're living today where the American European is defined as the white American, and the American African is defined as the black American. And this, let me remind you, this word black has only been institutionalized within the last 40 years. So a lot of you are so too young to realize how we work, and how the fact is that the worst thing that you could call any member of my tribe is black. And I'll tell you why. Black, it's an adjective. Destitute of light, of darkest hue, opposed to light, enveloped in darkness, gloomy, forbidding, destitute of moral light or goodness, atrocious, evil, calamitous, threatening, clouded with anger. These are the words that are synonymous with the word black. The word white, an adjective of the color of fresh snow, showing all rays of the spectrum combined, the opposite of black, pure, innocent, harmless,
30 seconds.
honorable, honest, favorite, irreproachable, free from spot or guilt. This is Webster's College Dictionary. So we know that these words are cumulative. My granddaughter is starting the first grade, and she's going to be sitting in a classroom where she's being defined as the black American because of her African ancestry. And all the American European children are being defined as the white American.
Time.
Okay, I'm going to end, but I want to leave you with copies of, I was supposed to grant for all of the council, but I was supposed to come here at the end of August. And so in the meantime, I only have 4 that I will get the Holy Grant written. And I'm presenting that to you because a lot of the Holy Grant said, oh, mankind, we have created you on a single path, male and female, and made you into nations and tribes that you might know each other. The most honorable of you in the sight of your Lord is the one who is most obedient and love, sees and knows. This was revealed 1,400 years ago, before there was any such thing, while Europeans were still tribal. It had no written language. Thank you. Good people, and like I said, I'm on a movement to abolish it. All right, Fred Douglas say about institutional slavery. I'm out to abolish institutional racism by getting rid of these toxic words. I appreciate your time and understanding. This is an elder who's a product of Richmond Public School in the time of segregation and the most nurturing institution in our community for 1970 as a child was that school. From kindergarten all the way to high school. When you look at that,
Mr. Muhammad.
yes, ma'am. I hear you. Please, please. I have to seize the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And like I said, it's an issue, and the children are already demonstrating how they are affected by this word. Little boys shout out to Martin Luther King, middle school, that's how children recognize
had a more appropriate measure of SES, but this misstep makes me think that not only do we need a strategic plan, but we also need an action plan or an implementation plan. That includes community input and many of the other tools to improve diversity and academic well-being beyond merely looking at race. Some of these tools may be using open enrollment options to give options to families outside of the immediate neighborhood school area, or maybe even being intentional about where the next school might be built to draw from a diverse set of neighborhoods. The key thing is making sure that schools are accessible to the surrounding neighborhood community, also working with city planners and others to grow diverse neighborhoods. Please don't pair schools if it would create a costly, unwalkable, or complex transportation. The only thing worse than doing nothing might be doing something very badly. While more information is coming every day, there's still so many unknowns. Rezoning must occur to solve overcrowding and to close schools. I don't see how one can make an evidence-based decision to move forward with some of the parenting options.
30 seconds.
We're at risk for making some bad decisions. Please consider creating an evidence-based action plan. Please don't forget the importance of a neighborhood school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairwoman, Vice Chair, school board members, and Superintendent Campus. My name is Moana Coleman, and I am representing the Richmond Education Association. We are a local union of the Virginia Education Association, and on one of our most recent flyers, it says you can't spell respect without ESP. 1/3 of all public educators in America are education support professionals, and the work done every day by ESPs is irreplaceable. Our schools wouldn't work without them. Two things that we as the REA will be fighting for vigorously this year, and we've already talked in part with Superintendent Campus about this, and we'll continue in those conversations. Respect, meaning our ESPs do vitally important work in public schools, and they're the backbone of our communities. We will also be fighting for dignity. In that regard, we are saying that they deserve a living wage, full benefits, and good working conditions. We will be fighting for the decompression of the salary scale for our support staff in RPS. We believe that they deserve that and more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam. I'm very nervous. Excuse me. Good evening, school board members, Mr. Cameras. Thank you. Today, my daughter attends. I'm Jenny Irwin. I am a parent of the 8th grader at Benford Middle School, which we absolutely love. It's been our best experience in RPS. Today, I got a letter home saying that she is required to take PE. She's never been required to PE. My older two, one graduated in 2015, the other in 2018, were never required to take PE in middle school. So now we're trying to figure out what to do for PE. We were told that she could join a club or find an organization to do her after because she cannot fit her PE into her period, because the only time the PE for 8th graders offered is during her Spanish class, which is also an issue because she's in Spanish too, and she's having to give up 2 study holidays in order to fill the seat requirements. My question is to you is, how long have you guys known about this PE requirement, and why are we now just finding out the second week of her 8th grade year when we could have been planning all along? And I think it's really unprofessional, and it's not fair to the kids who have to do a PE requirement now or do a sport. What about the parents who can't afford to put their kids in a sporting activity, or people who don't have transportation to set out school activity? We're hoping that her walking to school every day will help go towards that, but we don't know. And I just like to know in the future what you guys are planning to address this, because it's not fair to the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
weeks ago, my name is David Jones, president and founder of the Children's Foundation. Two quick points we're going to do tonight. First, we put in our ladies in the city center. We continue working with school board representatives on the team to get this done. Truly looking forward to it. Great. For our young lady. Second, the young men's summer was held in August, which was another really great game. King City Center. At that summer, great things happened. Superintendent Gray actually gave it. I didn't listen to it. So it was a great speech to the young men facing some adversity and things that what we do to do that change. Great. They received the trust until they called me several times. At that summit, we gave out book bags without logos and information, phone number, email address, and all. So, for the last 3 weeks, I know you got a lot of it, but 9:30, 10 o'clock, most high school games are over. That's when they get. My phone starts ringing. I get phone calls from young men that's ready to quit. The worst thing you can do as a young man in high school is quit. Because they put something in you that's almost you can't reverse it. So I don't care if any young man that I coach, one thing you cannot do no matter how bad it gets. God bless you. And with the speech that the superintendent gave us and all the remarks that they got, they had like I do push. It's in the details. Every once in a while, sometimes on Friday night, just look at the school board. Just look at they have a whole section that comes on high school football. If you see some of the scores, you see what's going on inside. For example, I seen the team. I said, we're not going anybody on the bus right now. We just keep, somebody has to know high school should go on football field, but this is just not. I don't care how you tell me they sent it on overnight, get it done just the 3rd week. It's in the detail. This is a man that played for RPS, that played at Thomas Jefferson. We were not the best team in the city far from. But we knew how to win and we knew how to lose. So when you take a butt whipping Friday night, it's hard to go back to school. Ask questions, laugh, information. Same mentality that you took on that football field, you take it to the next. So I'm just here tonight to almost shine as a future aware of. We don't fight this battle a long time. Like I said, I'm getting a phone call now, and it's like, Coach, I don't know. But I cannot let a young man quit, because if he quits now, he'll quit on his family, he'll quit on his education, he'll quit on whatever it takes. But every once in a while, I'm just asking you, just get your ears up on Friday night and see what's happening to our young men. It makes a big difference in the classroom as well. So, like I said, every blue move, I know we got a lot of new players, trust me. I tell them they all see. Honestly, I can tell you that this school board and superintendents are truly working hard. Every once in a while, every Friday night, just look at the scoreboard and see what you want your son in that. These are just decisions that can be made. It's how you lose. I'm not mad that you lost, it's how you lose. It's how you win as well. So, like I said, we can just, this Sunday, you're on the side of the every Friday night, we just do all the paperwork and all the things you have to do. Just remember this conversation. Just look up and see. You may have a different. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, my name is Charles Willis. I live in the 8th District. On behalf of several civic associations represented by the 8th and 9th Districts, including the Jeff Davis Neighborhood Civic Association, United Communities Against Crime, the Blackwell Civic Association, members of the Oak Grove Civic Association, Bell Mead Civic Association, the Elm Hill Civic Association, several churches, including Pastor Dr. Robert A. Winter, members of the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and members of the Dominicans in Virginia. We're here to voice our support in the recent suggestion to review reopening the Oak Grove Elementary School. As all of you are aware, the overcrowding in our Southside schools, from Green Elementary to Royal Rock to Elcott Thompson, is unacceptable. These conditions put undue stress on our families, our school administrators, our teaching staff, and most of all, importantly, our students. We applaud the creativity of the creative proposal put forward initially by Dr. Shapini to review the reopening of Oak Grove Elementary School as a viable option as we look to find immediate solutions. Our children cannot wait for the construction of a new facility. Overcrowding is serious. It's a serious issue that must be addressed today. It is our hope that the idea proposed in the proposal is not tabled in its infancy because of the current state of schools. We believe with the appropriate budget, we can make Oak Grove a safe and viable option for learning for our students. We look forward to collaborating with the entire school board as this idea is further explored and vetted. We want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment and your interest in our children. And again, we ask that you continue to keep our kids first, our students first. Again, we ask that you please consider. I want us to close by saying this, that I also had an opportunity to speak with a council representative from the 8th District. And although there's not a number that's put forward yet, she has assured me that she would make sure that she speaks with the mayor and her other colleagues to make sure that there's some funding to add to whatever is needed. I think that's a great step in collaborating with the school board and our city council. So again, I thank you for the opportunity. We look forward to more collaboration, and we'll see you as numbers will join me at later meetings. I'll see you during some of the rezoning time where we'll have an opportunity, or we'll have an opportunity to share some more information with you all. Maybe not at that meeting, but more letters or more information to come to you from email. Thank you so much for the opportunity. There are some flyers and inviting each and every one of you all to come and join us this Sunday for a jazz and pop featuring Plum nationally renowned artist from Richmond, former teacher in Richmond, and we would love to have you all come on and join us as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school board, cameras. It's been a little while since I've been down here. Aside from the two pretty serious issues, y'all have had two more pop on your lap. Your challenges are great, but we are sure that you can manage them all, given that y'all get the big bucks.
State your name, please.
I'm Marty Jewell.
Thank you.
With the NAACP Education Committee. I'm calling on you all's attention to the arduous task of rezoning. I don't think there is a more political issue that you will face in your lifetime than rezoning. And so we understand that there's tension between those who would want the neighborhood school concept, which also is associated with less integration, less desegregation, and then there are those on the other side who are pushing for diversity and more diversity. I'm one who at one point declared that if they went back to all black schools, I wouldn't be brokenhearted at all. We did a magnificent job teaching our children when they were not desegregated. But that has nothing to do with the diminution of outcomes that we're seeing today. The world has changed today. What I do know is that educating black and white children, rich and poor children together does not diminish the outcomes for those who are better positioned and more fluid. We know this to be statistically a fact. We also know, however, that children that you teach today grow up and they go out into the wider community. But while they're here, they build relationships. And you know better than I know that today's jobs are given to those through which they were referred by a friend, through which they were referred by someone else. I run a business for 43 years, and I give special preference, sorry, to those who tell me that I know that guy and I'm out for it. And when you have a situation in which white folks are more inclined to be well positioned in the workforce, in the business world, and even in government, if our kids don't get to know these kids growing up, they get cut out of the economic deal. And so I need you all to concentrate on that fact as we go through this arduous task of rezoning. And recognize the value of diversity and know that there's no harm done to those who want their children in particular schools for particular benefit for their children. I was listening to something on National Public Radio just last night, and how much money, how much attention is given to raising up children and doting on them and positioning them for success at 3 years old. And our kids have early childhood available to them, and they're not getting service. If we can't do anything else, but at least see to it the transportation is made available for these kids to benefit from early childhood education. That's the minimum we should be doing, and you got the money in the program, but the seats are half empty. We got work to do. Please let us know what we can do to help with this. But don't get caught in the trap of this, we'll call it jet, this notion that our children will have difficulty in classrooms with black and white, when in fact it's us parents and us adults who got the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we have no other in the audience who would like to speak this time, this will conclude our public information period. I see our student representative, Madam Clerk, the recognition.
Yes, the recognition this evening is for our student representative for September. I believe Mr. Cameron has that certificate.
I do. Good evening. Welcome. Good to see you again. We just wanted to recognize you for serving as our student representative for the month of September in recognition of your service to the Richmond City School Board. Anything that you would like to say reflecting upon the experience so far? I know you have a little bit more time tonight.
Yeah, thankful for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. We are very, very appreciative. And if you don't mind, can we grab a picture? Jenny, come on up.
The next item is item 4, board actions, receive for action the personnel actions.
Good evening, members of the school board. The recommended talent office actions for the school board meeting scheduled for Monday, September 16, 2019 include the nomination of 47 employees, the change of contract of 45 employees, the transfers of 2 employees, the resignations of 35 employees, the furlough of 5 employees, the returning from leave of 5 employees, the retirement of 1 employee, the reappointment of 3 employees, the rescission of 4 employees, the termination of 2 employees, and the name change of 8 employees.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Young and seconded by Ms. Moore to approve the HR action. Any discussion? Ms. Gibson?
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question regarding the resignations. It appeared that some of the dates are from the summer. So when I first looked at it, the list looked like a large number, but I just was wondering if you could just speak to the timing for these, because I think some of them are from before.
Yes. As you know, our technological infrastructure in the talent office is not what it should be. And a number of resignations and personnel actions in general were not processed in as timely a manner as we would have liked. And so that would account for the dates.
Thank you.
Yes, I apologize about that.
Call the question.
Motion was made by Mr. Young, seconded by Mrs. Ford to approve the personnel actions. Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Sapini?
Yes.
Ms. Cosby?
Yes.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Owen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mrs. Page?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you.
The next item is 4.02, receive or approve the members of the Student Health Advisory Board.
Some board members. Ms. Moore has the information provided regarding the Student Health Advisory Board. and she can kind of give us an overview in the process as board representative for the SHAD committee.
Good evening. You can see on board docs the recommendations for the School Health Advisory Board. This was application process opened in May and closed on June 10th, 2019. All board members were CC'd, and the board approved the process on January 22nd. Per the bylaws, in the absence of a chair and a vice chair to lead the selection committee, the Richmond City Health Department provided technical assistance and administrative support to Chairwoman Page and myself, as well as to our CHD staff, to make the initial selection pending the board's approval. The composition and structure includes community representation to include health professionals, e.g. physicians, nurse practitioners, registered dietitians, health hospital care administrators, health educator, etc. Preference was given to individuals who live in the city and have at least one student in the Richmond Public Schools and or work directly with Richmond Public School students. Also, as part of the community representation bucket, representatives with at least some of the following: parents/parent groups, public agency, community youth group, faith community, business, industry. Again, preference was given to, preference for this group was given to individuals that have a child in Richmond City Public Schools and or live in the city of Richmond. There was also school representation, so the following positions from RPS's administration are on the SHAB, including the instructional specialist for phys ed and health, school director of school nutrition, school health manager, and lead school psychologist, as well as teacher members. Preferably, we attempted to select one per level of instruction: pre-K, elementary, upper elementary, middle, and high school, and ideally prioritize representation from health education or PE teachers and classroom teachers. Finally, the selection includes 2 high school students. It's been a while since the application has closed, and we would love to get started. So I would need a motion to approve the applicants.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Ms. Owen and seconded by Ms. Burke to approve the members of the Student Health Advisory Board. Any discussion? Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to get clarity soon. So how many members will serve on the SHAD total? And were there any applicants that applied that are not on this list?
Yes, there are applicants that apply that are not on the list, and I thought I sent it around to you, but I might have missed it, so I can send that around to the full list of applicants that applied. And I don't have the exact number, but I can count it on the list, but it's all the people on that the list.
Understood.
Call the question.
The motion was made by Ms. Owen, seconded by Mrs. Burke to approve the members of the Student Health Advisory Board. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Ms. Gibson?
Abstain.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Sapini?
Yes.
Ms. Coster?
Yes.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Owen?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorr?
Yes.
Mrs. Page?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. The next item is for business 5.01, receive committee or conference reports from board members.
Board members, the information regarding the school board governance retreat on Saturday, September 7th, 2019, was held at the Black History Museum. And at that time, the governance retreat was very productive. I thought the discussion was very insightful. And at that time, the board had the opportunity to do its self-evaluation, and the peak performance governance teams: 1, united in service to children; 2, board and superintendent have independent relationship; 3, indicators of success established for district vision, guiding principles. 4, relationships based on trust, loyalty, and respect. And 5, strong and durable linkage with community, proactive, not reactive, seeking community input on key decision, meaningful dialogue. So just to give you a quick overview of board evaluation standards. So standard 1, board governance and effectiveness. Standard 2, board relations. Standard 3, academic performance, student achievement. 4, accountability and performance monitoring. 5, budget and finance. 6, cultural responsiveness and educational equity. This information has been uploaded on Board Doc, and this is takeaway from the governance retreat. Goal setting, what are the results, which students, at what cost, and review our goals for clarity, context, tandem, and standards of practice. More you make your thinking visible, less time you spend doing defense, and outline the standards, timelines, expectations, and understand procedures, and feedback throughout. So again, just want to say that meeting our governance retreat was very productive, and you can again refer to Board Doc because it has been uploaded. Thank you. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 really quick updates that I can elaborate on later via sidebar conversation along with written notice. But one, the ad hoc legal committee convened again, I think since the last time we met, and the group is doing well. I'm not going to belabor that point. But the second point that I need to make is I want to convey my gratitude to Jennifer's team, along with Michelle and Karen. They provided a lot of benchmark data to Appomattox Regional Government School. That was extraordinarily helpful. But even the old saying or adage, no good deed goes unpunished. So the board of directors for the Appomattox Regional Government School has initiated a conversation relevant to future outlays, and it's entirely contingent on a lot of decisions yet to be made. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I do want to share that a couple of proposals were presented to my colleagues and me on the board that could increase the cost, the operating cost for Appomattox Regional Government School, anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 a year. I know it's for the most notable causes, but we have about 1/4 of their students, so do the math, it's pretty significant. So I do welcome and invite the opportunity for this board, along with obviously the administration, start having that conversation ASAP in the event that the Appomattox Regional Government School, should choose to increase expenditures. And I need to share with you what it's for. It's to increase compensation for faculty and staff at the Governor's School. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next item.
The next item is item 6, administration business. 6.01, receive an update on dreams for RPS goal setting.
Good evening. We're here tonight to talk through the final 4 goals So the first goal is accreditation. This goal is so goal 1 addresses ensuring that 100% of our schools are fully accredited by the end of the 22-23 school year. Statewide accreditation rules are complex, so you'll notice there was a 6-page appendix that's attached to this deck that outlines how accreditation is calculated. We won't go through that today. We did do a presentation on how accreditation was calculated a couple of months ago, and we will give a refresher for you at the first meeting in October when accreditation results will be shared publicly. So I won't spend time doing that today. Instead, we'll just share briefly our vision for getting to 100% of schools. So this past year, 19 schools were fully accredited. The BDOE will release the 2018-19 accreditation rates on September 26th, and then as I shared, we'll share a board presentation at the October 7th board meeting. By 22-23, 100% of RPS schools will be fully accredited, and you'll see our proposed annual targets for the work moving forward. You'll see that we have a baseline marked as TBD for this past year. So the first place you'll see an actual target is in 2021, based on what our results are when they come out at the end of this month. We'll modify if necessary between 18, 19, 20. In terms of updates along the way, we'll formally report out our accreditation numbers once it's released each year by the BDOE, which is typically end of September, and then we'll do a formal presentation to the board thereafter. The next goal is graduation. This is goal 2. Goal 2 has 3 parts. It addresses increasing our overall graduation rate, increasing the percentage of graduates who attend a 4-year or 2-year college or university, increasing the number of graduates who are entering the workforce in a living wage job or participating in national service. And we'll do that overall as well for subgroups. So we'll use 3 different measures to track our progress towards this goal. The first will be the Virginia on-time graduation rate, which is the 4-year graduation rate. The second is the post-secondary enrollment rate of RPS graduates, and the third will be a newly instituted survey this year to measure workforce and national service participation rates. You'll again see that note that neither RPS or the BDOE currently track workforce participation, and so we'll be implementing a survey of that type to be administered to graduating seniors beginning this school year. We reviewed, as we have for all of our goals, research studies, national research, and literature to inform goal setting, as well as to validate, of course, the importance of the goal. You'll see 3 different studies listed here about states who have made significant gains, factors that promote high school graduation, which are many of the things that we're working on in other parts of Dreams for RPS, as well as the importance of a diploma and post-secondary education in terms of long-term employment. This has a complicated looking formula on it. But this is the Virginia's on-time graduation rate formula. So to calculate this measure, the BDOE first calculates the number of first-time 9th grade students in a given cohort year. So that's what you'll see on the left of the denominator. 4 years later, the BDOE calculates the number of these same students who earned a diploma approved by the Board of Education to determine the number of students who graduated on time in 4 years. So that's the numerator. Then, out of the denominator, they subtract any students who transferred out of the division and add in any students who transferred into the division over those 4 years. There are 2 notes and caveats. There are minor adjustments that are allowed And the note about the diploma approved by the Board of Ed means that a GED or certificate of completion will not be counted when counting the 4-year graduation rate. So much as we've done for our other goals, we looked at the graduation data of every division across the state over the last 3 years to be able to compare that to our own data. So we looked at statewide, divisions with 60% or more economically disadvantaged students as defined by VDOE, and then our neighbors, Chesterfield, Rigo, and Hanover. So you'll see the data here on the far left is Richmond Public Schools. The last year we reported out our graduation rate at 75%. Other divisions with similar populations at 89%, our neighbors at 93%, and the statewide average at 92%. So we have a baseline of 75% of ninth graders who were ninth graders in 2014-15 earned a diploma by the end of the 17-18 school year. As you know, graduation rate is part of accreditation rate, so when the accreditation comes out at the end of September, we'll then also have our graduation rate, and once received, that will serve as our baseline. So that's why you'll see baseline 18-19 is listed as TBD. Our goal over the next 4 years then is to increase our on-time 4-year graduation rate by 10 percentage points, whatever our baseline may be this upcoming year. In terms of reporting progress, we'll report progress towards this goal in that September-October timeframe each year once the VDOE releases graduation rate available. And then we'll also provide an update in probably February after the fall semester concludes to give a sense of the percentage of seniors on track to graduate based on credit completion after the first semester of their senior year. The second part of this goal relates to post-secondary enrollment, and again, we're able to use data reported by VDOE to measure our progress towards increasing the percentage of RPS students who enroll in college. So the VDOE provides post-secondary enrollment reports which indicate the percentage of Virginia high school graduates who are enrolled in an institution of higher education within 16 months of graduating from high school. So this is sort of our best available estimate of student enrollment in post-secondary. Keep in mind, these figures are going to reflect the percentage of graduates. So you had to have been a 4-year graduate, not simply a student who enrolls. That's a caveat. Other important caveats with this data. So this is being tracked by the National Student Clearinghouse, which is a nonprofit that collects student enrollment data from colleges and universities. Not every college and university is included in this database, although it represents about 90% of all U.S. higher education students. This data is collected by the VDOE twice a year, so we may see just a little bit of fluctuation in our number throughout the year. So what you might get when we report it out in the fall may change slightly in the spring due to increased tracking. Overall, NSC believes this is about 88% of post-secondary enrollment in Virginia. There are a number of reasons noted there why they may not be picking up on the last 10%, but it's a relatively accurate and certainly good proxy for us in terms of enrollment. So you'll see the same types of categories or different groups that we've been comparing to over the last 3 years. So here on the far left, RPS has 52% of our students who graduate within 4 years enrolled in a 2 or 4-year college. So you'll see the dark blue here, the 35% is a 4-year, and the 17% up top is a 2-year college or university. relatively comparable to other divisions with similar populations. We're at 56, our neighbors at 69, and the statewide average is about 67%. So again, our baseline here is 52% of our students who graduated on time, which would have been 75% in 17-18, enrolled in a post-secondary institution within 16 months of graduation. We seek to increase that by 10 percentage points by the 22-23 school year. And you'll see the targets listed above. As shared, the BDOE updates the enrollment reports in the fall and the spring, so we'll provide updates then in December and June. The next goal that we'll look at is equity, Goal 5. So Goal 5 addresses decreasing the gaps in efficiency and achievement more broadly by different subgroups, including race, economic status, health status, and IEP status. We're using 3 different grade band specific assessments to measure our progress that also really serve as benchmarks, critical benchmarks for academic success. The first is for elementary school students, where we'll track the performance on the 3rd grade reading SOL. For middle school students, we will track middle school Algebra 1 enrollment and then performance on Algebra 1 SOL. And then for high school, we'll be tracking AP or advanced placement, enrollment, and performance on the AP exams. For each one of these measures, and I'll show you just some sample data in a moment, our overall gap will be to reduce, our overall goal, will be to reduce the gap by 1/3 over the next 5 years. So for example, I'll show the slide in a moment. The gap in reading performance between Hispanic and white students in 3rd grade is 40 percentage points. So our goal will be to reduce that gap by 40%, or roughly 13 percentage points. Many of the subgroup data has not been readily available either through the BDOE. It's not something that's publicly reported, and so we still are working to get some of the subgroup data for the 3 different measures. I'll just give you an example in a moment. The national research that we looked at for this helped inform those 3 measures, and so you'll see a research study here about why reading by the end of the 3rd grade is so critical. You'll see a study about the critical importance of taking Algebra 1 by 8th grade in terms of enrolling in more advanced math courses down the road, and a study of AP participation. We also cited here our own equity audit that, as you know, we had done in collaboration with the Education Trust about 1 year ago, and so many of their findings helped inform this work as well. So for 3rd grade, you'll see here again the importance that transition from learning to read to reading to learn. You'll see some of the findings from the Ed Trust equity audit. And we'll be using, as I mentioned, the 3rd grade SOL reading proficiency rate. So here you'll see the 3rd grade reading performance by subgroup. And this is the one of the 3 measures where we currently have the most complete data. And you'll see that data point that I shared of our Hispanic students, 3rd grade pass rate of 40%, whereas white students was 80%. For each of these groups, so between different racial subgroups, we would look to close the gap by 1/3. The data that we're still working to get from the BDOE is related to, for example, English learner or students with disability or disadvantaged. We don't have the counter data, so all actually also includes the subgroup. So English learner, well, they have a current proficiency proficiency pass rate of 30% can't be compared to all because they're also included in all. So we're still working to get that final data so that we'll know what that gap is. And again, the goal will be to reduce that gap by 1/3. For middle school, we're looking at Algebra 1, and we'll be looking at 2 measures. The first will be enrollment, and the second will be performance. As I mentioned, students who enroll in and are successful in Algebra 1 by 8th grade are therefore able to access higher level math courses, making them more likely to be college and career ready, a goal that you know is part of Goal 3, our college and career readiness measure. There were also a number of notes from the equity audit about our Algebra 1 enrollment, which showed not only did we have lower enrollment, there were racial disparities in enrollment as well. We will use our division level enrollment and SOL data to track improvement. The data that I will show you tonight, and then we'll fill this out. This is for students who are currently taking Algebra 1, the pass rate by race. So you'll see there's far less variance than, for example, the SOL pass rate data, where we'll likely see our greater gaps to address will be in enrollment. And then finally, advanced placement or AP. Bless you. We currently offer 38 courses for college level coursework, offer college level coursework an opportunity to earn credit through an AP exam. And the research referenced earlier, of course, shows that if you take these types of courses, you're more likely to enroll in, stay in, and do well in college. The Education Trust Equity Audit shared with us some of our equity issues around AP offerings. Some of them related to access, and these were some things that were addressed this past year around access at different schools, which we have worked to address, as well as, and I'll show you in a moment, pass rates. It's important to note that starting in 2021-22, the BDOE will begin factoring AP participation into accreditation via the College Career and Civic Readiness Index. And so that will be an important correlate here, I think, as well. We will be tracking the percentage of students enrolled in AP courses overall, and of course by subgroup as we look at the gaps. And then we'll be tracking the percentage of students who take the AP exam and pass for receiving a 3 or above, and be looking at the gaps there. I want to show you that data right now as an example of the types of gaps that we'd be eliminating by a minimum of a 1/3. This is this past year, the percent of exams with a passing score, but broken down by race. So you'll see, for example, that 9% of Black students have a passing score, whereas 46% of white students have a passing score. That would be a gap that we'd be eliminating by 1/3. And then finally, Goal 10 is related to funding. It addresses increasing our funding from local, state, federal, and philanthropic sources. As baseline, this past year we received full funding for Dreams for RPS. We received over $19 million for our capital needs and have a balanced operating budget. Our proposed annual targets, though, are fluid. Each year we will fully fund Dreams for RPS, as well as any other critical operating and capital needs, and look forward to, of course, working with the board to define those priorities. In terms of progress, obviously you guys will adopt the budget each June, and so we'll know where we landed with that. We'll share philanthropic contributions in collaboration with the foundation on an ongoing basis. The final pages of this deck, again, are the appendix related to the standards of accreditation related to Goal 1, and we'll go over those at the October 7th board meeting in greater detail. Happy to take any questions that folks may have.
an immense amount of work, and I can tell that although I have been through this, I have not read all the research articles that you have included for my homework, and I will do that. My big question is about the AP exams. Now, I believe we do pay the fee for the test, the exam, is that correct?
Tracy, may I verify that with you? Do we pay the AP exam fee for students or not?
Yes, for students who do not qualify for labor, students not do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Tracy.
And do we have any idea about the percentage of students who are enrolled in the AP classes who take the AP exams? I mean, are most of them who are in the class taking the exam?
Tracy's nodding her head. I can give you specifics, but I'll trust her.
But the expectation is that it's a shift. We pushed hard on it last year is for
Excuse me, Dr.
Mayor, please.
I'll defer to the expert on some of our current AP practices. One of the reports was trying to aggregate is the participation rate of enrollment versus those who took the exam. However, it is the expectation that was set with our schools and our teachers that we have 100% participation for exams. That was what we said last year. We'll figure out a way to monitor that. We don't, the College Board doesn't provide that report, so we have to cross-reference data.
Dr. L, just real quick, just to piggyback off Ms. Owens' question. So last board meeting, the superintendent gave an update about the increased participation, increased qualifying scores. So it's possible, I guess, you could break down.
Break them. I'm happy to share a bit more. Go ahead. We'll provide the enrollment breakdown by center.
Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report. I'm not a happy camper. I'm not a happy camper. Literally, I'm not a happy camper. 9% African American students pass the advanced placement. I agree with Madam Chair. I actually want to know the numbers. There continues to be, not pointing in the face, really want to point at myself, too much disparity between racial. So something is not right. And it may go all the way back to pre-kindergarten. There's someone who took out there, but all the way across the board, we can do better than this. And then when I see 1/3 by in the next 5 years, what's on this first accreditation plan page?
We're currently in our second year of the strategic plan, so there would be 3 remaining years after our work this year. Obviously, this year, enrollment is completed. We'll report out on the enrollment in October, but can work, of course, towards reducing gaps in the pass rate and increasing overall pass rate this year and the subsequent 3.
Well, I do hope in October, on October 7th, when we have the complete data from the state, this is usually a timeline. I want to see school by school. I want to see complete data. Because there's some things, as we've talked about in the past, we may need to put more energy on type energy. What works in one school may not work in another school. It's not a clear kind of process. But when I look at this data, what's been given, once we get the scoreboard or whatever dashboard in place, that's what I'm looking forward to see. Because we can't wait until, you know this, until we get to high school or whatever else to see what the students are. So in October, really would be nice to have represent that in September. First of school year. But I know you all wait on the state data, but you do have some of that, broad data right now, correct? You do have some of that, I mean, it's just.
We do. It is embargoed by the state right now. So
Right.
Principals have access to the data, but we cannot share that broadly until the state release to the public, so it is embargoed right now.
So the principals still, they have it.
They do.
So
They
they
have their raw
have
data.
special needs students and make sure they're in the right category, doing corrections.
Yes, well, they have their raw data, and as they're in the process of preparing for goal setting meetings with Mr. Hughes, Mr. Cameron, and myself, so they are in the process of going through all of that data. They've had that since August. Principals have. If I may say one other final thing, I don't want the equity data. I think certainly is shining a light on a significant area of focus, hence why it's one of our goals. But I don't want to diminish the great work that Tracy, her team did as well in terms of increasing enrollment this past year, plus the number of students getting passing scores was very notable already an increase. We have a significant way to go, but the work done this past year was a step in the right direction, so just wanted to.
I have a question. I know you all work very hard.
Oh, no, and I wasn't meaning that in a defensive way. I meant our students,
My concern is we want to catch the night right to the students. So I know everybody's working hard, it takes hard work, it takes the right formula, but we have to do that. We have to do that. And I'm not saying we won't towards vaccines, okay? But we have to do that. We have to find a solution. I wish I knew what it would be, but this, I look forward to 100% accreditation because we had that. Ms. Cosby?
Thank you, Ms. Stasko. I too, it is heartbreaking, and I'll be honest with you, I'm underwhelmed with our goals. If we know third grade, if we know literacy is critical by the third grade, I'm not satisfied with 1/3 meeting SO requirements in third grade 4 years from now. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. I think the goal that you're referring to would be goal 3 academics, which we didn't go over today. That's the overall proficiency. So the gap. Yes. Yes. No, it wouldn't be a proficiency rate of 1/3. It would be eliminating the gap by 1/3. So, for example, so this gap of 40 points, we would be increasing this by roughly 13-ish points, bringing this up 13 points in the next 4 years.
So I'm mad at another month for taste.
Well, I don't be as good on the fly either. I'll defer to you.
Plus 13 gives us what? 53. Right. And so, and then that's 53 to 80. Already we have students, our Caucasian students, 80 at the year 18-19. So we're saying 4 years, we're not even going to get to 80. We're going to be at 53. Is that what we hear?
That is correct. And that's what aligns with the goal 3 academics and the work that it takes to implement a new curriculum, support our teachers around. Jason's going to jump in here.
If I may, certainly we would love to see an even greater narrowing of these gaps. I will say though, to my knowledge, and I could certainly be wrong, but I am not aware of a single urban school system in America that has closed achievement gaps by a third, let alone more than that, in the span of 4 years. And so while it feels understandably unsatisfactory, it would be a rather historic achievement to close gaps by that point. And so, of course, our overarching goal is to ensure every one of our kids is successful. At the same time, though, we want to caution against creating unrealistic goals for the time span that we have, and frankly, causing disappointment amongst the public in what we're trying to achieve. So everything we've outlined is, I would say, very ambitious, but at that very edge of also feasible. And so, while of course we would like to exceed those goals, we will aim to do so. I do think they are very ambitious for what we know about what urban systems have achieved thus far.
Thank you for that, and thank you for helping to manage expectations. I will just say that, you know, we have not really put forth, let me rephrase it. At this point, I get managing expectations, but I also believe that if we have to set stretch goals, so be it. And understanding that they are stretch goals, because this is 4 years is a long time. We have, yet again, we would have additional students who have not made that SOL pass rate by the 3rd grade, and we know how critical that is. So if across the board we just say, hey, we're going to make sure that all of our kids can meet that by a certain time, I think it behooves us to figure out if it requires additional resources, let us know. What does it require, so that we're not continuously in 4 years' time still so significantly behind the. And we would be. And that is a problem because it affects everything else that we see. Everything else. It will affect a child's life. And so I hope that we can, as I said, stretch ourselves. I get what you're saying in terms of managing expectations. But I'm going to tell you something. There was an individual many years ago who contract, her superintendency contract, for 1 year, the board said, hey, you must make sure that all of our schools, not all of our schools, 10% of our schools, what have you, are accredited. And everyone said it could not be done, and she exceeded it. And I think right now we need to just really, we need to be a story. And I remain underwhelmed by some of our benchmarks. I am underwhelmed by, when we talk about our on-time graduation rate, and we have the state, I have to go back to it, that's at 90%, and even in 4 years' time, we're at 82%. The state is at 92% today. We don't know where the state will be 4 years from now. The expectation is the state will go up. Let's say it's 96%. And our expectation is that we will graduate 92%. And just in 15-16, we're at 81%. So, underwhelmed, and I hope that we can revisit some of these benchmarks. And I will ask my colleagues or chairman if we can revisit some of these, keeping in mind what you're saying, Superintendent Cameras, but also how we can raise the bar expeditiously, and what is it going to require. Ask the administration to do.
Again, I share the desire to, frankly, ensure that all of these numbers are 100%. We really shouldn't be satisfied with anything less than certainly that is what, over time, we are going to strive for. I would say, if we were to achieve everything that has been outlined, I actually believe that would be incredibly historic. And while it would be short of our overall long-term aspirations, I do think it would make a dramatic difference for thousands of students in Richmond. That being said, we welcome any additional feedback. We do need to finalize the goals, though, if we're going to create the dashboard and share them with our schools and begin to manage against them. And so my request would be if there is any other feedback to get that to us, say by the end of this week, since we have been discussing them for several months now. So if you could email those to myself and Ms. Udasco, that would be very helpful, and then we can revisit that and come back to the board at our next meeting with proposed final goals for all 10. We can put it all together so the board can see it all as one package and then hopefully adopt those so that we can work towards it.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My thought on it as it relates to equity is that I would like to see more measures in place. That's been my ongoing thought as we've been going into the priorities, but I worry that we oversimplify the story by not expanding to additional data points. And I also recognize that some of those data points might be in some of the other priorities, but I do think that that it's important to look at them here under the lens of equity. So my thought would be that looking at SOLs, I think across not limiting to just a few. I think that we should be looking across all the SOLs. I think that, particularly as it pertains to our English language learners, graduation is the key metric. I think that we've been talking about now, and I think we'd be remiss not to include it under particular item. And then I think also.
Can I just clarify that actually they are included for each one of the goals? It's just not called out here. The goal is to do whatever the goal says, and they say overall and for each subgroup. So yes, we'll be looking at that. Just for specifically for goal 5, we've called out 3 particular measures that are like academic, what's the word, like guards, whatever, gatekeepers for different pieces. But for everything you'll see, L status in goal 2 for graduation, academics and equity. So we'll be looking at all of those in the drill downs as well. So absolutely.
Yes, and so my thought, I just want to make sure that they're captured here under equity, because I think if we want to say that we're making progress, but then but to not be focused on say graduation for this particular metric, I think is a mess. Another data point that I think is important as it pertains to equity is the budget piece. And so, how are we able to track, that students across the district have equal access to various electives, for instance, and other courses. And I'm sure there are other budget-related items, even the percentage of long-term subs in a building, for instance, that I think would be important factors to be looking at here as well.
And that one is addressed in the strategic plan specifically, action 5.4. We'll be bringing forth the project plans, and that's about the equity-based funding formula to address the kind of exact things that you're talking about. So at the October 7th meeting, we'll bring a project plan for each of the projects that were outlined in the December 3rd pacing and pricing plan that were shared with the board about 9 months ago now. So you'll get a detailed overview of how that can look. So hopefully that will help answer addressing that too.
Right. Just to confirm or to clarity, I'm speaking in terms of our progress. So I think it should be important to be measured and to be tracking those budget things as goals as well.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have what should amount to two pretty easy questions. One regards the secondary enrollment in institutions. How do we measure that? Is that access or required via exit surveys at the end of the school year?
In the post-secondary enrollment? No, that's actually captured by that clearinghouse that reports back. Look at that specific caveat so I don't mistake.
Yeah, it's just pretty reliable. So that's, and then my second question, thank you.
So it's not a survey, it's the clearinghouse speaking to the video.
Much more reliable. Thank you. And then my second question regards the attendance, or excuse me, not attendance, but graduation rate. And 70 plus percent, 75% for the 9th grade cohort. But do we have statistics relevant to, and I'm thinking about the most vulnerable population, or ELL, and new arrivals in the country, those persons that have not made it to, perhaps because they were older than where they normally would be in 8th grade, absent, have arrived in the country recently. What that percentage is, how many of those students?
Well, I don't know that particular percentage off the top of my head, but one of the caveats about the calculation of the 4-year graduation rate is it does adjust for students who, under federal or state law, have an allowance to take longer than the 4 years, which may include some of those subgroups that you're talking about. And those calculations are done by us.
Also, we'd like some input from our student representative on this very, very important discussion that we are having, because the decisions that we make will impact our students, and I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I'm familiar with some of the classes that you're talking about as I take them. So first, I'm a little bit confused because I know different schools within Richmond offer different variances of AP classes, and those different schools have different race disparities. So, I mean, as someone who takes 3 AP classes, I know that they're pretty hard, but I know at community, a school that has more black students than white students, but there's a closer gap. I think a lot of classes with AP classes, well, my AP classes, have mostly black students in them, and I know students before me have passive classes, so I was wondering what schools are involved in the studies, and also should we be looking at like what areas the students come from that are passive. Great questions. I can answer the first and I'll take down the second. That represents all RPS schools. But as you noted, there may be variance in the number of students who take AP courses in different schools, or like yourself taking 3, the number of classes, AP classes, even a particular student within a school might be taking. I'll just reiterate what Superintendent Cameron said. If anyone now has feedback on any of the goals 1 through 10, we've now completed sharing our proposal of the annual targets for each of the goals. If anyone has feedback and wants to send that to me or the superintendent by the end of the week, that would be helpful, and we can bring a finalized document.
Michelle, before you leave, something that Luck said that was very, it stood out. You talked about different AP courses in different schools, and that's the equity piece that we've been talking about. if, and I'm just using this as an example. So if you have AP Chinese at community, then AP Chinese at George River. I think the bar has been set low for so long. We have to raise the bar. Because we know that our students will rise to the occasion each and every time. And yes, we do know, but we do need to know the budgetary implications. Because we are starting, we'll be getting our budget cycle soon. So these are the conversations that we do need to have to make sure that the resources are appropriately allocated where they need to be allocated, and making sure that they are the right resources. So yes, we do need that.
The next item is 6.02, receive the updated master calendar. So what we've done here is propose a calendar by month for this year. I'll just call your attention to a couple of newer items and then take general questions. So you'll see on the far left column our subject or topics. So I wanted to just draw your attention to the ones related to Dreams for RPS. The board had asked for updates on the specific projects within Dreams for RPS. So you'll see that over the course of the year, you'll receive an update on all of the projects and actions within a priority 3 times. The first meeting in October will give you a comprehensive overview of a project plan for all of the projects, and all of the actions, and all of the priorities for the entire strategic plan. Then the second meeting in October, you'll get an update on all of the projects in priority 1, and in November 2 and 3, and so forth throughout the year, with a repeat again in January and then another repeat in April. So you'll be able to track the actions. You'll see in the row below that are all of the goals then that we just completed discussing. And so you likely recall on the same page that had the targets, there was a reporting progress section. And so what we've done is break down for each one of the goals or the sub-measures within a goal. So for example, graduation had multiple measures. You'll see that Flakescore will update you on the data related to that goal. You'll then see a section on governance with updates on the MOU, quarterly opportunities for policy updates and review, etc. There's a broader section on budget and finance with our traditional financial updates, budget calendar, and other grant approval, salary schedule approval, etc. You'll then see a facilities section with JCT, rezoning, school facility updates, CIP projects, etc. And then a section on the bottom, which are other mandated reporting according to board policy, or other key things that we wanted to place on the calendar proactively now so that you knew when that was coming. We've reviewed this with the board attorney and the board leadership, and I believe there are no gaps in required content, but certainly welcome any feedback on anything that you wouldn't feel would be covered here. Otherwise, it is our hope that this is our 90% of the way there agenda, of course, being able to accommodate critical items that come up throughout the year.
So board members, just to remind you, the master calendar has been incorporated with this as well in collaboration with our board clerks, attorney, and Michelle to create this document. Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of thoughts. One, as it pertains to the strategic plan review under Dreams for RPS, my hope is that, I appreciate that we're going to be doing deep dive discussion by priority, but I think it's important that we get an overall lay of the land on where everything in that strategic plan on an ongoing basis. And so, I mean, essentially what I have in mind, and I assume that there is a spreadsheet that the team is using as a working document, across all of the items in the strategic plan, and there's someone assigned as the main point person, and there's status updates and kind of current budget numbers and next steps and dates and things like that. And so my hope would be that that document would be presented to the board.
It will be on October 4th. That's the first meeting where we'll share the project plan for every project in the 2019-20 part of the strategic plan, which will have point of contact, the allocation, and the milestones for each month over the course of the year. Because there are 70, 80 of these individual projects, in order to maximize time, we'll break them up according to priority, but certainly since you'll have all of the projects on October 7th, you're welcome at any time, of course, to inquire about the status of the project. But we'll be able to do deep dives based on the date of priority.
Fantastic. Some other things that I want to ensure are included, and these are just in no particular order, but just notes that I made as I was going through the document. One is in general the dashboard that we've been talking about. I think that should be something that we don't have academics as a kind of color, and I recognize that that's likely included within Dreams for RPS, but I do think that we should probably call up those academic updates more specifically in the document so that both the board and the community know when we'll receive those records. Specifically to, on a similar note, with our English language learners with special education. I think something that should be also on the regular is the water testing and
that is regularly updated on our website. Just I can resend the link, or it was updated from the summer results already.
And then also the maintenance budget overall and kind of progress on maintenance items that are happening in the school system. That was something that we discussed over the summer as we voted to move forward with the new roof. I think one that is particularly close to my heart at the moment is transportation. We have not yet received an update in terms of how many routes, how are we doing in terms of hiring, and I believe there are a number of folks from transportation here today, so likely there are some items that should be discussed, and I think that could be kind of a regular discussion as well. I think those are the broad things, and then I also have a long list of a lot of items that we have been talking about getting updates on that are outstanding. Equity audit phase 2, BPI, of course, the budget audit and the progress that the district has made against those items, the bathroom lifts, the cost of the new school buildings, the surplus project, where we have the committee that we formed to look at the surplus land, the Altria building, the love to get an update on pilot programs that were part of our first budget, restorative justice, home visits, trauma-informed care, the policy review process, which I believe the board began going through each policy section by section, and I think we still have some work to do on that. The facilities plan overall and that pricing exercise that we've been discussing for some time, teacher contracts and the teacher retention task force, the discussion on contracts and reviewing annual contracts, the GRTC usage, the P card and the status update on that, the mobile contract, alternative education, I saw that that's actually in there, the VDO survey, and CTE.
The good thing is I would say about 85 to 90% of what you said is here. So if you'd like to send me that list, I can kind of cross-reference where I think it will show here, and then we can perhaps look at the others. I'm absolutely happy to kind of help it layer into the matrix. I know some of these are broader terms that we may not be immediately concerned.
Ms. Burke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In light of the conversation you just had, I'm so thankful about what Ms. Gibson just stated. I don't have the calendar for the school year, but I know every now and then we have assessments that are being given. The map or where it is for, and I saw that someplace in your.
It's in the second row because MAP is one of our key indicators for accreditation. So you'll see we're going to be providing academic updates at multiple times throughout the year. MAP, for example, will be reporting out in January. We'll be also reporting that out again in May. So, yes.
What I'm asking is, please, it's in November, the first quarter of school. There are assessments that's being given. Before we give our report cards, right? That's what you
I don't.
Testing, assessments. I want to know before May for our children.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm asking in connection to what Ms. Gibson just stated. For instance, in November, we have attendance, suspensions, that's great. But there should also be, my opinion, if we're going to really be like a laser keyed into student achievement, we need to know where our schools are, how they are functioning. So yes, we want to know suspensions, yes, we want to know the attendance because they all connect. However, student achievement, some data should be in place on our dashboard or something. That should be ongoing. I would love to see a concept of being realistic, quarterly. So when May comes, we won't be in a situation so far as we are forward. I feel like I'm just paddling the don't go where because it's not true. So I'm asking, my suggestion is, and I can send this to you like, that after each quarter, that we get data academically, how our students are faring in math, reading, those core subjects, in addition to the attendance and suspensions. Because if I see a school has a lot of suspensions and the children aren't reading on a level, it chunk. I mean, that's the greatest problem.
Absolutely. I believe that the math data is included here on the dates where there's mandatory administration, including also we have PALS data in here, all that align with the goal. But what I will do is cross-reference the assessment calendar. And if there
I'm not following.
Let me jump in.
MAP is in January, I'm sorry, and
We
then
need to have that for January, that's what I'm asking.
We will make sure the board has regular updates on academic data throughout the year. There will be no surprises in May.
So that means every quarter?
I believe so, but we have to look at when the interim assessments are given so that we have the data to report. I don't know those off the top of my head, so I'll confer with Dr. F. But yes, roughly on a quarterly basis, we will report.
And I'm not asking for the issue. I'm asking for the report.
Yeah, there's a difference between grades and formal assessments that are graded, as you know. And so I don't have that assessment calendar memorized, so I just don't know when certain data is available, when the math is available, when the reading is, but here is my guarantee. Whenever it is available, we will share it and make sure the board is updated.
I'm asking that it's
we'll make sure that's listed here as well.
Yes.
Yep.
So board members, as a reminder, so feedback was due last Friday regarding the calendar, but if we have additional feedback, Mr. Dasco, we need to provide feedback by this Friday, which is the 20th.
That would be great, and just so if people were wondering what, I had only sent it to you and Ms. Dorr before, so other board members hadn't yet had an opportunity to give feedback, so absolutely, if folks have feedback on this calendar, that's why it's listed draft, happy to take that, this week. Thank you.
Cosby.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I saw you were wondering, you didn't miss it, I know.
But for our superintendents, we need to
That's part of priority one. So if you get the priority one update, that's action 1.8, we'll give an update on that, absolutely.
Well,
You'll get a full project plan on,
I think one of the things we can do, as Ms. Udesco said, is to delineate and make longer the topics in each priority, just so that they're front of mind, so folks can see what we discussed. Because I think most of what's come up tonight is actually here. It's just in the priorities, and so we'll make that clearer so that everyone can see.
I can make a cover page or something, so that's just.
and then October, we got one for the first meeting.
No, the first meeting in October, we'll present the 50, 60, 70, I don't know how many there are, project plans across the entire strategic plan. Then the second meeting in October will be the deep dive into priority one, where we can begin to explore progress.
Our time has changed a couple of times on this without, I know before we got information from the chair, but this will be discussed, VPI will be discussed, the second meeting in September, then at a school meeting, like I stated, the first meeting in October. So anyway, so we know this is going to be the second meeting. And the reason why there's some harping on it is because we don't want so much time to go by. We have issues, we've heard issues in terms of transportation. We want to make sure that what our numbers are looking like, what our registration looks like. So to keep letting the school year go without having these conversations, which is critical, is important.
Next item is 6.03, this is the staffing update.
Good evening again. As you recall, we opened on the first day of school with 13 vacancies. As of last Wednesday, September 11th, we had 17 vacancies across the school district, and those schools are listed here.
Mr. Rebel, can you give a little context on how we went from 13 to 17?
We had a couple of resignations, which we anticipated during the first couple of weeks of school. We had at least one rescission of an offer of employment. We had some Spanish teachers who were with us last year as teachers, but have now been categorized as long-term substitutes due to lack of licensure, and a number of them are in the process of obtaining their licenses.
Question for you, Ms. Forever.
Yes.
So what is the strategy to address these vacancies? In particular, the Southside schools for the ESL support?
We are using LinkedIn Recruiter, and we actually are still reaching out to find suitable candidates for our vacancies. It's a lot more challenging at this point, obviously, but we have not stopped.
So have we reached out to other school districts that may have an increased population in our ESL students? Because I understand there may be some challenges as far as the applicant pool, but yeah, have we reached out to other school districts, school localities?
We actually have. We have a tool that we have access to that gives us a great deal of information on people's endorsement areas in other school districts across the country. And we have.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a thought in terms of the report, the kind of the data for the ongoing reports. I was wondering if it's possible to also note the number of long-term subs per building and or number of provisional licenses and those other things that I know, we've got some folks in place, but I think that those are also key metrics as we're looking to see how we move the needle.
Yes, I can get that data.
Thank you.
Next item is 6.04, receive proposed process for school name changes. Good evening, School Board Chair, Vice Chair Dorr, Superintendent Cameras, and school board members. I come to you this evening to share a proposed renaming process. Of course, we know that changing a name is a symbol, but we also know that symbols matter. And as we begin the construction of 3 new schools, as well as the consolidation of Amelia Street, we want to make sure that we have school names that honor and inspire our students. So I would like to take you through the proposed steps, starting with step 1, which the administration is asking that the school board tonight officially announce its intention to rename the S.H. Green Elementary School, George Mason Elementary School, the new middle school on Hall Street, and Amelia Street School. Step 2 will then be to create a renaming team at each one of those schools based on the individuals we've listed here. And we are going to ask that the renaming team attend community meetings and official board public hearings on the renaming process. They will review all names submitted by the public along with any related feedback, and then they will select 3 names to submit to the administration for consideration. After which, step 3A, we would hold a series of community meetings, as well as today launch an online portal in which people could share their feedback publicly, also making available for community members to submit paper as well. And the goal would be to gain as much community feedback
feedback on the process, as well as give opportunities at these schools for the community to engage. Also note that all of the sessions will be public and live streamed. Step 3B, which is indicated by our school board policies, we would have 2 official public hearings on November 4th and November 18th to hear from the public based on naming feedback. And then each renaming team will meet by November 23rd to choose 3 names to forward to the administration. The administration does have a later date, so if they wanted to use their second community meeting for this purpose, we would leave it up to them. The RPS administration would review all the feedback related to the names provided, and then we would submit a formal recommendation to the board for adoption at the December 2nd school board meeting. Our hope is that the board would vote to accept the administration's recommendation or choose one of the other names recommended by the renaming team. Other additional information that we included was just some guiding principles. We heard this feedback from the community when we went through the process prior, and we thought it would be helpful to give our renaming team principles such as names that are relevant to Richmond, Virginia history, culture, or geography, as well as really call out that we want school names not to discriminate and or cause offense on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, disability, or LGBTQ+ identity. And then we also noted that our meetings, schedules, and meeting minutes will be posted on our RPS website. We just launched an addition to the website, which is called RPS Engage, which will kind of be one-stop shopping for people to give feedback on a variety of our initiatives, including renaming. All of our meetings will be public. We will really rely on the renaming team that will be chaired by the school principal, who are all excited to kind of take on these efforts, but really engage students, staff, family members throughout this process. And then again, all submissions would be posted on our RPS website. So again, that is a proposed process, but happy to take any questions or feedback.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Sade. Do not support this process, and I will not vote to repeal our school's names. But since we're going to have this conversation this evening, I hope that we're going to have a candid conversation. And what I mean by that is I hope that we're straight with the city of Richmond, not cute, but straight. And this board will acknowledge that it's our intent to remove George Mason. It's our intent to remove Thomas Jefferson. It's our intent to remove Patrick Henry. It's our intent to remove George Will. There goes our intent to remove portraits of George Washington. And ergo, it must be our intent to ask the Commonwealth of Virginia to take down the statue of George Washington just down the street from here. And I certainly hope that we're, as a group, going to agree to not attend any conferences or meetings in the District of Columbia until the name Washington is removed. I hope that we have a serious conversation about a really important topic that, granted, is really difficult to reconcile. And I don't have any answers. I don't pretend to be nearly that wise. But I did want to share something as it relates to George Mason. He said a couple of things that I think is important. One, he said, as it relates to slavery, it would bring about the judgment of the heavens. And he said of slave owners, which he was one, that they were tyrants. I hope that we have that genuine, candid conversation this evening about what this board's intent is. Thank you.
Ms. Lilly?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a clarification about the policy with respect to the public hearings. It doesn't have anything to do with necessarily your declaration of the intent to rename tonight, but your policy states that you will hold a minimum of 2 public hearings within the community where the school is or will be located to allow the public to propose names for the schools. And so certainly it's at the board's pleasure to suspend that policy to coincide with what is recommended here, but I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Ms. Dorr?
This is a general comment related to this, but related to all of how we collect public feedback. I'm really grateful for the thought catchers at meetings during rezoning. I'm grateful for the information about the solicited online. I feel like it's a lot of raw data, and I know that we're strapped for time, but I do think that having some sort of standardization about making sure that we do take notes at every meeting, and then we'll have some way to report that out to the public in a way that's digestible would be helpful for both rezoning and also for this process and all processes moving forward. Thank you.
Ms. Owen?
I don't know if this is the place, but looking at your schedule, October 24th for Alcott Thompson, I am the district person. I'll be on the renaming committee. Have a children's cabinet meeting that night. Can we switch it with Amelia Street? It's on a Tuesday the 29th. Just, thank you. Or at least consider it. Yeah.
Board member, Ms. Gibson? I have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is related to the construction milestones and how we need to align this process with that process. Could you speak to specifically where the name is going to be incorporated and what the actual drop dead date that we have to ensure that the construction related decisions are made?
I'll let Mr. Cameron address.
Sure. Based on our conversations at the JCT, and perhaps Mr. Simmons can have additional detail, our understanding is that having the names by the end of the calendar year is what is, if not absolutely necessary, certainly the ideal state in order to order signage and prepare other things for the open windows.
Okay, so I would like to know, just from a design standpoint, like where, just more specifically, like where the components will be on the building. But we can talk about that also as part of the GCT update. And the other question that I have, process related, is in regards to like the final selection and the student participation. The process seems paper similar to what was originally proposed for the last project, and I'm wondering if in these projects too, the students will be voting on it, or how that is going to be working.
Absolutely. I think as noted in the presentation, although we want to leave the decision with the renaming team, all of the renaming teams would incorporate the student feedback as well as family feedback in the process. I think it will be up to the renaming team based on that school community if they want to do it via classroom surveys, whether something they send home. That's just something that we are going to leave to the decision of the renaming team, so we can make sure that we individualize it for each school community. But one of the tenets that we have set is we want to be a little bit more deliberate with how we're incorporating students, current students, families, as well as community members. But we can share that with the board once the renaming teams come up with that, so you can see what each school did, if that's helpful.
So there are no other questions, so board members, we're declaring our, so we need a motion to declare our intent to remain for schools as recommended by the administration. Ms. Owen?
I move that we declare our intent to rename these schools. Do I need to name them in my motion?
Second. It's been moved by Ms. Owen and seconded by Ms. Burke to declare our intent to rename 4 schools as recommended by the administration. Any discussion? Ms. Gibson?
One other question. So as it pertains to Elkhart Thompson, have we decided what's happening with the existing school?
We haven't decided yet, but it is a matter that the rezoning committee has discussed at length. My understanding is the most recent conversations from folks on the committee, it looks like there's consensus to demolish the existing Thompson building. But of course, that's ultimately something for the RAC to recommend. But I would defer to Ms. Owen if you have additional thoughts on it.
I think it really is a decision that this board makes as part of the facilities plan. And I know people are very anxious to know, but I think that again is an expense. And so who's going to pay for it, how much it's going to cost, all of that's going to be part of our deliberations as a board. Yes, there certainly are people on the committee that are anxious to see it gone, but again, I think that's part of the facilities decision that we make.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would remind us all that if we mothball it, even just a mothball, it costs the taxpayers $50,000 a year. Second, I can share with you that residents of the 4th District very much want us to raise what amounts to a really broken down, beat up building. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson?
I agree with Ms. Owen's point. I do think it is incumbent upon this body to make a determination about that building, and I think ideally we would make that decision sooner rather than later, so that those options that come back from the rezoning committee reflect that decision. And so, I think as it pertains to this renaming, I just wonder if we haven't made that decision yet, and there's, I know that, I'm just wondering, so Elkhart Thompson and Green are both schools that are named after folks in Chesterfield, and so if the building stays open, then we'll have one building. I'm just.
Ms. Owen?
There was no question about having it stay open. The question was when we would demolish it. There's no plan coming forward except for Mr. Cropper's first report. No plan from the committee to keep that building open. So the question is, are we going to tear it down? And if so, how quickly? And that's this going on.
So, board members, the motion on the floor is declaring the intent to rename 4 new schools, or 4 schools as recommended by the administration. Call the question.
The motion was made by Ms. Owen, seconded by Ms. Burke. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Dr. Sapini? Yes. Ms. Cosby? Yes. Ms. Burke? Yes. Ms. Owen? Ms. Jewell?
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Next item.
The next item is 610 Packets, overview of the RPS legislative advocacy plan.
So this evening we are excited to share with you a draft legislative agenda and advocacy plan to help guide our state legislative advocacy efforts for the 2020 session of the Virginia General Assembly. The Advocacy and Outreach Department here at RPS has been busy preparing for this work by meeting with members of RPS's leadership team, improving our communications platforms, and planning out this year's advocacy campaign. So with 4 months to go until the beginning of session, we are excited to engage our entire community in finalizing and advancing a legislative agenda that will make measurable impacts for our students. Advocating for more state funding is both one of our top 10 goals and a specific item within our Dreams for RPS. We looked to Dreams for RPS to help guide the overall structure. As you can see in our legislative agenda, specifically aligning agenda items to our 5 strategic plan priorities. We've also ensured that we are keeping a focus on equity throughout our work so that we can address some historic barriers that we know have been in place. We will tackle these issues and advocate for more equitable funding at every opportunity. Additionally, we will share an engagement timeline that will ensure all of our entire community has the information, training, and resources necessary to empower them. So I'm going to ask that Matthew come up and share both our draft legislative agenda and proposed engagement timeline.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Good evening, Superintendent Cameras, Chairman Page, members of the school board. As Dr. Harris referenced, the draft that we have put forward to you tonight is based on policies and funding streams that do align with the strategic plan. Many of these items may look familiar to you based on last year's legislative agenda, also the work of many of our aligned partner or advocacy organizations, both locally and statewide. We do work with them frequently to make sure that we are all strategizing on how to be successful with some of the significant state funding priorities that we have all identified need to be addressed by the General Assembly. In the coming weeks, we will engage with them further. You are the first that are seeing this legislative agenda tonight. We look forward to receiving your feedback and continuing to add in anything else that you deem important enough for us to include. And I'm going to go ahead and dive in. The first item, under priority 1, exciting careers, teaching and learning. The first item in this category, the at-risk add-on, is really the most important piece of our legislative agenda. It's something that does really prioritize funding for the city of Richmond, given the intense needs that we have. I'll also note that the State Board of Education is currently proposing revisions to the state standards of quality, and they are actually proposing doubling the amount of funding in the at-risk add-on and actually renaming it to be an equity fund. So there does seem offensive with that. It is a very significant funding stream that we hope we will be successful in gaining additional funding this year. Also in priority 1, we do have 2 items that come directly out of Dreams for RPS, expanding the Virginia Preschool Initiative to 3-year-olds and also allowing fee-based access to allow for greater diversity in our early childhood education classrooms. Moving ahead to priority 2, teacher and staff compensation will continue to be a major priority. We know that we need to raise both Virginia's teacher salaries up to at least the national average, and we know that we have work to do locally to ensure that our teacher compensation is competitive with the surrounding localities, and we need state support to do that. So part of what our ask of the state will be is that as they provide further teacher compensation, that they are eliminating or reducing as much as possible any burden on localities to shoulder that cost. Moving on to priority 3, we have safe and loving school cultures. Support staff is one of the major items that carries a very big price tag, and that relates to the cap that was put on support staff positions about a decade ago during the recession. It is about a $400 million a year ask from the state, and it would provide significant additional power resources to RPS to continue to hire more support staff and better paid support staff that really ensure their students have the wraparound supports that they need in every single school. Along with that, the state often is looking at trauma-informed care policies. This is something that we will continue to advocate for along with some of the mental health organizations in the state. And then student discipline, this is an issue that you all heard about last year. It is something that our legislative delegation cares deeply about. And we'll be sure that we're working with Senator McClellan and Delegate Warren and others to continue to advance policies to combat the school-to-prison pipeline. And then priority 4, deep partnerships with families and community. These are 2 new items for our agenda, but we would like to be more aligned with the city and with other advocacy organizations that are looking at restrictive and discriminatory barriers in volunteer unemployment laws. So we will be diving into that issue a little bit deeper and providing you some further details as we move forward. And then we'd also like to look at the possibility of other grant or incentive programs that encourage more parent-teacher home visits, either as a pilot program within Richmond or something broader within the context of the state budget. So that's a new area that we will be discussing with our legislative delegation. And then priority 5, modern systems and infrastructure. We know that we need more meaningful state financial support for school modernization and construction. We will be continuing to ask the General Assembly to prioritize lottery funds for those purposes, or creating new funding streams. And then we'll also be looking at grant programs or other state incentives that help ensure that we have energy efficient and sustainable infrastructure. So with those items, again, we are happy to take any feedback that you have on those. We will be providing a lot more detail in the next go round after we do receive that feedback from you. I'll also just reference this advocacy calendar tonight. This does list some of the major milestones that we will have during our advocacy season. In the coming month, we will be starting off with our Family Academy courses on advocacy. We will be working with our advisory councils, the Student Advisory Council, Parent Advisory Council, Principals Advisory Council, and Teacher Advisory Council, to make sure that we're engaged across RPS with all of our different constituencies, to make sure that they have the tools and resources they need through advocacy toolkits and other trainings to really empower everyone across RPS to be advocates. The governor will introduce his proposed budget in December. We are hoping that he will put wonderful things in the budget that really continue to advance equity across the state, specifically hopefully benefiting Richmond. And then in January, we are hoping to open up the new year with the Legislative Advocacy Summit. This would be something that we would do in partnership with the city, and really bringing everybody together, give them their game plan for session, give everybody the tools that they need so that we are all on the same page to advance the legislative agenda that will really make the city of Richmond and Richmond Public Schools stronger. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson, Ms. Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for this overview. A couple of thoughts that come to mind as we move forward is, as we are trying to address some kind of high critical areas that we're trying to address, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to try to look and see where the legislative opportunities might be with those things. And so, particularly a couple that just come to mind immediately is transportation. And this is not something that we receive funding for from the state, but I know that we are not the only district that is struggling to fill these positions and to ensure that we're able to provide adequate transportation to get all of our students in school. And so I think that is worth consideration. Another piece is some of the curriculum items. And so I know that as we are challenged in how we address ensuring that we're able to meet those requirements that are dictated by the state. Part of it is because we take a different approach to scheduling, whereas the counties have a block schedule, and we've opted not to for good reason. And I wonder if, and I don't know if it already exists. I know there are grants for extended day, but if there were an opportunity to allow us to extend the day as needed to be able to have the class length that we feel best meets our students' needs, but also be able to still meet those requirements. I think that would be worth a consideration as well. Regarding funding, I do think, and perhaps it was here and I missed it, was just the LCI, something that's always on our radar, and I just want to make sure that that doesn't fall off. And also as it pertains to DPI, I recognize that the strategic plan included language regarding fee-based access, but the language gives me pause. And so I do think that it is important that we look for opportunities to expand access to the program. But this is a public school system, and so I feel very uneasy at the suggestion of charging some folks. And so perhaps we could push for raising the income threshold to allow for more folks to be able to be eligible for the program. I think that school counselors is something, I mean, all of those things, there were those caps that were placed during the recession.
That was referenced in priority 3, safe wellness cultures with the support staff cap that I referenced, so that is very much at the top of our radar.
Great, thank you. And of course, I also think about those things like we're going to make TFA and other programs and how we can ensure that, again, we remain a public institution. So my last thought is regarding the process overall, and so my hope is that we also adopt an ad hoc committee to collaborate on the legislative agenda as we have done in years past, and so you know, I would like to motion that we create an ad hoc legislative committee.
Before we proceed, our student representative, that's the need, because she does have school tomorrow.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to see you guys helping change RPS and the legislation and different rules that you guys are trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, in this room knows what a big fan of committees I am, so I gladly will second in this motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Gibson and seconded by Mr. Young to create an ad hoc legislative committee. So since Ms. Gibson, she made the motion. Any discussion? Call the question.
Motion was made by Ms. Gibson, seconded by Mr. Bartlett. I'm sorry, Mr. Young. To create an ad hoc legislative committee, Mr. Barlow.
Yes.
Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Young. Dr. Sapini.
Yes.
Ms. Cosby. Yes. Mrs. Burke. Ms. Owen.
Yes.
Ms. Dole.
Yes.
And Mrs. Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Ms. Owen and Ms. Jewell.
My question really is for you, Ms. Wilson. Have we established a date for our governance in January? Okay, well, one of the possibilities is that first Saturday. So, don't set that in stone for everybody to get together and just see what we put together. That's all.
Ms. Dorr.
Thanks, and also I guess you should decide that. I agree with Ms. Gibson on the, I know everyone talks about it, but I really want to make sure that we are thinking not just reactively to what the governor puts forward, but that we do not lose sight on the LTI or some other creative funding mechanism, or even in lieu of taxes or something else. So whatever we can do to be supportive there, I think is really important. And then I don't know if this was state policy, but there was additional money granted, I believe, last year for BPI for a couple of grants that some localities were able to take advantage of. So to the extent that money is available again this year, I would love to see us take advantage of that.
Would this be the appropriate time to name the committee members who will be on the ad hoc committee, just in staying true to making sure we are adhering to the timeline? I think it's going to be important for that committee to meet sooner than later, and for us to add to our advocacy timeline the dates and times that the ad hoc committee would meet.
Okay. So, and we have two choices. We can hoc committee, or we can, come up with a new one. Pleasure.
Sorry, can you refresh your legislative?
It was Mr. Barlow, Sapini, and it was Mr. Barlow.
Madam Chair, I'd welcome anyone who wants to participate in this process to consider joining a committee in whatever form we constitute it.
Dr. Sapini, would you like to continue on ad hoc committee for legislative? Thank you. Mr. Young? Ms. Gibson?
Yes. And I welcome the opportunity to serve as chair.
Yes, Ms. Gibson, because you made the motion. So we have Mr. Barlow, Mr. Young, and Ms. Gibson as the chair. You said something, Madam Clerk? Okay, so the members have been identified, Mr. Barlow, Mr. Young, and Ms. Gibson. And Ms. Gibson made the motion, she's the chair of the ad hoc committee. So we already have the work laid out for us, and we're expecting feedback from the board by this Friday.
So we'll take the feedback that was shared at this meeting, incorporate it, and then we will circulate to the board by the end of this week, and would ask that, within a week to receive any feedback on that, so we can continue to update the legislative agenda. We just want to be mindful, if we would adhere to the city's meeting on October 10th, that we make sure that we feel good about the agenda items prior to that. So we can send around that timeline with your feedback, Ms. Gibson, that you shared today, and then if a week suffices, we would ask for any other feedback from the board.
Ms. Cosby?
Thank you. I am curious. So, Ms. Dorr mentioned and Ms. Gibson, they both mentioned the LCI or alternative funding streams, since that seems to be so difficult and is very contentious. So, what type of feedback have we got this summer from various legislatures during the summer in terms of have we been pushing it yet before us, or have there just been preliminary conversations, or what are people saying about education?
Sure. We've been having, or I've been doing personal outreach to individuals throughout the course of the year to talk about what went well and what didn't go well this past session, and look at other new options that we could potentially explore creatively. Thinking about things like the LCI, we have had such trouble getting any movement on changing the actual formula that we've been looking at things that make it Richmond a specific carve out, like doing a capital city multiplier to recognize all of the taxes and property in the city. I know that and as I was saying, the Board of Education has been doing a lot of work themselves in standards of quality, and so that's been taking up a good amount of oxygen in the room. And then the support cap position is also a major thing that people are continuing to talk about. School divisions across the state continue to express their frustration with not being able to properly financially support all of the various support staff in our schools.
Do we have numbers, for example, the support cap? So do we have numbers of that? I know that's something that legislators definitely want to see how much it falls, because they're fighting for it. So do we have numbers that you can share?
I know that the statewide financial impact every fiscal year is about $400 million. To dive into what that impact would be on specific for RPS, I have to go there.
Just to add one more thing, ad hoc committee will include the close of session. Ms. Gibson, Ms. Cosby.
I do want to, I know it's an ad hoc committee, at some point, it might behoove us to make it a standing committee because work is not just during the session, it should be year round. So that's just something for us to consider later on. When we talk about committees, this is not feeling the legislative committee per se, but you know, we have the finance committee, the legislative committee, you know, and is there an academic committee? I mean, I don't know. So there we have to discuss. And not to say that because that's the most important piece of our work.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is 6.06, received JCT update.
Good evening, School Board. The Joint Construction Team continues to meet every Thursday at 1 p.m. in the Superintendent's Conference Room. Typically, we focus on budget and schedule, but we also talk about a wide variety of project issues. We've discussed stormwater abatement. We've talked about the renaming process. We've talked about technology needs in the schools and how to set that up and what that's going to look like. The point being that there are very detailed project plans for each one of these pieces, along with the overall project plan for the schools. Now that contractors are on board and have started working, the primary goal here is to hit key milestones in those project plans. The next big one would be getting each of these schools under roof, which is slated to occur before the end of the school year. And we are on track with that. I'd also call out that for George Mason, we are on the schedule with a car on September 24th at 3:30 on the 5th floor of City Hall. And we'd like as many people as possible to attend that if we can, particularly on the board. Then we have some pictures here of each of the school projects. As you can see, the structure is starting to take form. A lot of walls, we have some roof pieces going up. And again, the ultimate goal is to have each of these buildings under roof by the end of the year so that contractors can start to do the work inside of the building when the temperature gets really bad.
Just to clarify, by the end of the calendar
year, yes, thank you. But each project remains on schedule and there hasn't been any change in budget. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just wanted to convey my gratitude to my colleagues and to acknowledge Darren and Bobby and the whole team for air conditioning for the first time ever at Westover Hills in the gym. So thank you, everyone. Second, in regards to the budget, where are we at now? We're into the 150 million, and do we have, Linda rightly pointed out a moment ago when we were having a discussion about Elkhart Thompson, demolition costs, etc. Do we have the dollars still in the budget for demolition of really, Elkhart Thompson, but also contingent on what Carr approves, George Mason, etc. Where are we?
Yeah, great question. The budget's still in the 145 range. That's the all-in budget for all three schools again. In terms of the demolition for Elkhart Thompson, that's been estimated to come in at about $750 to $1 million.
And the George Mason demo is in the 145. It's already factored.
That's correct.
And green.
So question for you, Mrs. Simmons. So the remaining amount of the 150
has been set aside for the design phase of George Will.
Yes, that's a good point of clarification. We have not slated that for the demolition of Elkhart Thompson at this time. Right now, we're still thinking George Will, trying to start to get the design piece of that work underway. But we are open to feedback.
To be clear, that would be a board decision. So there's nothing official for that money just yet. The goal is to complete these projects and then consider what to do next.
That has been a part. Georgeville High School has been in phase 1 for new school construction. So I know we may be jumping the gun, but honor that. Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of thoughts. One, I want to reiterate Mr. Young's note about the budget. I think that my request is that for all of the JCT updates that we do here, if we could include those actual numbers as part of the document. Admittedly, I was disappointed because this particular presentation is essentially pictures, and so I think that we need to have the ongoing documentation with more data. Perhaps you could include the recap of those things that are discussed in the weekly JCT meetings, just to have the talking points in terms of what's going on with this process in terms of scope. Construction projects are incredibly complex with lots of moving parts and pieces, and I think it would be helpful to see what those things that are happening and what decisions are getting made as we're going through the process. So essentially, the request is to get a document with the ongoing updates to the budget, and then also to moving forward to get more detail in these updates. The pictures are certainly nice to see, but I think that we could use more, more detail.
And to be clear, every time the budget has changed, we report that to this board immediately.
And so to also add to what you just stated, Mr. Simmons, so minutes go out weekly, and regarding the weekly JCT meetings, so those the minutes are sent out to all board members. Thank you.
Next item is 6.07, receive an update on rezoning.
So for tonight, we've uploaded a couple of documents for review. The first is an SES document that's overlaid over the planning blocks in the city, which has been a request from the RAC for some time. The second is a compilation of all of the rezoning feedback from the community that have been captured through the thought catchers. I also note that this Thursday, Crawford will be back in town to host or to help to facilitate our RAC meetings, along with the community engagement meeting as well. Those will take place at Fox.
Other thing we would add is that our goal is to also share prior to that meeting this week the updated and revised options with the board and the committee prior to the meeting.
Mr. Barlow?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many options should we be expecting as far as updated options are concerned?
We're are still reviewing. We plan to release those late tomorrow.
Mr. Young?
Like Scott's question, how many of those options include parent?
Again, we need to take the night and morning to finish going through the draft.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One question that continues to come loop around is regarding VPI. And so I recall the body was asking Mr. Cropper regarding getting those VPI numbers. But I've heard from folks on the committee that they've been told that VPI is not part of the scope, and I just want to make sure it's very clear whether it is part of the scope or not. I would be surprised if it would be, since we've been talking and repeating the fact that this is a comprehensive rezoning process that we're going through. And I do think that it's important to include it. And so, those are my thoughts on that.
In terms of capacity, yes, VPI has been part of the scope. Cropper was in town, he visited all of our centers, he visited every school, he mapped out the available VPI space. But in terms of growing the program and adding more students, that's a board decision that we need to discuss.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you. So I just want to note that I'm not necessarily speaking to growing the program, but rather where the program as it currently exists, which buildings that it will be located in. And it's come up as it pertains to parent, the number of transitions. It's something that's come up several times, and so I just want to make sure that that is incorporated. A couple other thoughts as in terms of data that's not necessarily specific to rezoning per se, but another data point that I think we may want to capture and have it ready are the percentage of students that come from single parent households. And the second is regarding transition. So I think in some of our school buildings, we have a lot higher influx of new students that are new to the school because they've moved and they're moving more frequently. And I think that it would be really interesting to see that metric across the district, not only for the rezoning process, but in general, as we are looking to see whether that might be a factor in academics as well.
Mr. Young?
I would agree. I just want to share my displeasure with the options today. So I look forward to receipt of prayerfully some new more robust options.
Thank you.
The next item is 6.08, receive an update on the Virginia Department of Education and grant understanding.
Good evening. Last week, Ms. Unesco and I had the opportunity to meet with our new liaison with the Virginia Department of Education as it pertains to the MOU, and that is Dr. Jonathan Lewis, who I think many of you know was superintendent of Fauquier County, was interim here for a few months, several years ago, was a former teacher at TJ, I believe spent time at Armstrong as well, and so we are excited to begin this next phase of our work with the state with him as our liaison, and he has indicated a desire to be helpful and supportive as best as he can be, and so we're excited to begin that new partnership. Our next formal meeting is October 7th, where the entire team will have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Lewis and begin to set expectations for going forward.
Mr. Young?
He also most recently was the interim executive director at Appomattox.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, school board members, Superintendent Cameras, where would you like us to begin? I could give an overview of the current requirements, if that would be helpful.
If I may, it would be helpful to the board providing guidance as to what the administration should provide, as this was requested by the board this evening, so that would be helpful.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Essentially, I am hoping to get an update as it pertains to physical education. I know at some schools, some notices have gone home regarding 8th graders meeting requirement and not having had the coursework. I am curious to know if that circumstance is widespread in all of the middle schools, or if it's just a couple of the schools, and then better understand what the next steps and the process is.
Sure. So when we presented to the board earlier this spring around middle school scheduling, the priorities we set were to first ensure that middle school schedules were in compliance with the state, with an emphasis on the PE requirements, that students were able to take more than one high school credit-bearing elective and not be forced to take study hall if they didn't need that, and to look at the equity of advanced courses across our middle schools. And at that time, we acknowledged that there was significant more work to be done in the middle school schedule, including taking a look at the length of the school day, but that we did not plan to tackle all of the issues for middle school scheduling this coming school year. We did, we believe, address the priorities that we set in the spring, which were to address the availability of more credit-bearing elective courses, ensure more access of high school advanced courses at the middle school level, and remove the sort of what was perceived to be the mandatory stuff. As part of that work, the Code of Virginia requires PE to be taught in 6th and 7th grade, and in 8th grade, students either take PE or the school district must require a program of physical fitness with a goal of 150 minutes per week. That is not a new requirement, it's just a requirement that the division has not historically monitored or provided oversight around. And so students at the middle school level who are opting in for other electives outside of PE and health in the 8th grade year have to, it is our responsibility to monitor whether they are participating in a program of physical fitness. And that can be covered by a number of options. Harry, we can talk about how those options are met.
Sure. I think it's also important to note that the code provides for 150 minutes of a program of physical education for 150 minutes per week on average. The on average piece is very important because there are a number of ways that students can participate in a program of physical education. For example, and I'm just going to read everything straight from the code, students can participate in before and after school physical activity programs such as intramurals, clubs, dance programs, community sports programs, and interscholastic activities. Other opportunities outside of school, such as individual physical activity, which could include a student walking or biking outside of the school day. Student participation in physical activity with a parent, individual lessons and activities such as ballet, or a student participating in a local fitness facility program. Further, joint school and community recreation activities that require physical education are allowed. Again, I want to note that the program of physical education is 150 minutes per week on average, meaning that if a student, for example, participated in basketball and he or she practiced for 2 hours every day, well, there's 120 minutes of physical activity per day times 5 days, which is 600 minutes already, not including basketball games. It is quite possible for a student who participates in ballet, dance, intramural sports might be able to
complete that requirement in one season, because on average, it will come out to 150 minutes per week.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks, Sarah. I'm really glad Tracy referenced lengthening the school day, and I look forward to an opportunity to deliberate as a board more about that, because I'm convinced that it's something that we need to do. Further, I'm convinced that some of our challenges in school or deficiencies pertinent to discipline, for example, are often born out at the risk of stating what we all know. We're born out of not allowing young people to participate enough or adequately in physical activities. I recollect very fondly my 7th and 8th grade PE, which essentially was just 7th grade boys against 8th grade boys football all year. And I'm certain that it realized an academic achievement in the classroom. So I just share that to say that I hope that we will sooner rather than later have that conversation relevant to lengthening the school day to accommodate more, not less, PE. Thanks.
Thank you. I concur with my colleague, lengthening the school day, the school year, year-round school. I'm not going to get on that, but I do have a couple of questions regarding this. So how do we capture if someone, let's say we have students who are walking to school or biking, whatever, how is that data captured? One. And then second, how have we communicated this and when did we communicate? Of course, not the change, but making sure that we adhere to, we're in compliance, and that, anyway, when do we communicate?
I'll take the first question. So we developed a form, a simple form that any 8th grader who is not currently enrolled in 8th grade, it's a form that the student and their parent will provide as documentation of participation in a alternate physical fitness activities. It's a very basic form where they sort of track their hours. And in terms of communication, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. First, I do want to publicly apologize to the parents of 8th graders in RPS, as the communication was not efficient or crisp as we would have hoped because of a number of factors, but we did drop the ball in communication, which we plan to fix. Bottom line with communication is principals should be connecting with with parents of 8th graders who right now are not taking physical education in as part of their class load, as part of their course load, to make sure that parents understand all the options that are available to have their child complete their program of physical fitness, as well as how we are going to track that between the home and school.
Just in terms of the process, so we have a form, right? So you have a form. And so is it something that the student has to turn in how frequently, or is it, yeah?
So that's managed at the school level with the counselor. We recommend that it's turned in on a weekly basis just to keep track so that a student isn't rushing at the end of the year to provide documentation. But to Mr. Hughes' point, depending on the physical fitness activity, a family may wait. So for example, if a family knows that their student is involved in a daily winter activity but is not involved in a fall sport or spring sport, the family may wait to choose to document those hours. So I believe we've tried to keep it semi-structured but flexible as possible, so that families knowing the different activities their students are in, that they can document that when the timing is right for them. Because it is on, it's 150 minutes on average, which is the goal. It's not, that's what the code says. That doesn't mean that we are requiring the students participate in a daily physical activity. I mean, in a nutshell, what the state is asking us to do, and I think the state has the code in this way, is there are students for whom physical fitness, PE is not an enjoyable experience. There are students for whom they prefer performing arts. they prefer the fine arts, they prefer music. And yet we know that physical fitness is important to one's health. And so I think the state has developed this code, particularly for 8th graders, knowing that 8th graders are also starting to explore courses for high school credit and the like, that they've created more, they've allowed school districts to have more flexibility for our 8th graders so they can choose how they demonstrate physical fitness. So I think the thing that, you know, I think the communication and the way in which it's communicated caused unnecessary anxiety with families. And in reality, we are simply asking families to provide essentially documentation in a simple way of something they likely already do with their child. And if their child is not involved in any form of physical activity, this is a great opportunity for us to say, hey, let's set up a game plan here that's very simple and works for you and your family. So that's, I think at the end of the day, that's really what this is.
And as Tracy said, it's also about honoring student voice, to give them the opportunity to take the electives that they prefer at the middle school level, as well as, again, to take elective courses for high school credit, whether it's 1 or 2 classes.
Ms. Dorn.
Thank you for the explanation. Very clear. Still don't think it's clear to families. I know that it's still a work in progress, but I think it would be helpful to have just a simple one-pager explaining what happens, who's eligible, what the next steps are, and reiterating what the student code was. I know personally that would be helpful for me as I communicate the situation to families.
Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. So I have 2 questions that I wanted to just get clarity on. So is this an issue that impacts all of the middle schools?
I believe that there are, because there are students at every middle school who are taking 1 or 2, at least 2 up to 2 courses for high school credit, and there are students who've chosen electives outside of PE for 8th grade, that I would imagine if there are students, we are collecting those numbers by school. Again, not a new requirement, not unique to Richmond, but something the district does have a responsibility to monitor compliance to this, to meeting this requirement. So that's what we're introducing this year is monitoring that for students who do by code have the option to do something other than the traditional PE course.
And then the other point I want to make is that, I mean, it's my understanding that we are the only district that doesn't require a physical education class in the state. Perhaps you could confirm that. You know, it gives me pause to suggest that this is a good thing that we don't offer gym because it gives folks more flexibility, because this is very much an equity issue. And so when we're talking about, the fact is that there is a state requirement that students need to get a certain amount of physical education. And again, as a public school and a public school system, that requirement should be able to be met through the school. And you know, the way the language is written in the Code of Virginia, it says such program may include any combination of physical education classes, extracurricular athletics, recess, or other programs and physical activities deemed appropriate by the local school board. Each local school board shall implement such program during the regular school year. So that indicates to me that, that it is our responsibility as a district to ensure that the 150-hour or minute average is inclusive within activities offered by the district. Ideally during the school day, but possibly in an extracurricular way, because if we have created a dynamic where a student with means both from transportation and who can afford to say take a kicker's, enroll in kickers, that they can also then take additional advanced courses because they're not taking it up with gym. This is a significant equity issue that I think needs to be addressed right away.
I'm going to go ahead and respectfully disagree. So in terms of equity, all of our middle schoolers have the opportunity to take the same electives. They have the opportunities to take the same high school classes for credit. Additionally, what I believe we're doing is actually honoring student voice in their own interests, which is in alignment with their college and career plans developed to understand student interests and to set a course of action that gets them to explore that interest in others. What the code does say is that 4 electives shall be available for 8th graders. One in world language, one in health and PE, one in fine arts, and one in CTE. We do in fact make those 4 classes available for our 8th graders. But should a student, for example, not enjoy physical education and wants to take Spanish 1, music, and band, they have the ability to do so, as opposed to just saying, no, young man or young lady, you have to take physical education. When there are many other opportunities for a student to obtain their program of physical fitness over the course of the school year in a variety of other ways.
I would also just add, I think it's inaccurate to say that this is somehow creating inequity when we have expanded the number of electives and course offerings that our students have access to. Our students have access to Art 1, theater, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and the list goes on. And those are classes that students may not be able to take in the evening or in their neighborhoods, but they are able to get access to those enrichment programs within school. And again, while I certainly concur with Harry that communication and rollout could have been and must be stronger in the future, I definitely think that we are first and foremost in full alignment with the code, and second, we are providing more choice and voice to families and students.
Thank you, Dr. Elf and Mr. Hughes, for promptly responding to this issue regarding health and PE. Next item.
The next item that you have, an item under is A, other informational items, and that is to receive your staff directory, which was posted to board docs. The next item is new business.
Mr. Young.
I sent the superintendent a note about this, but I just want to say this publicly. I thought that Bridget, correct, did an outstanding job on that. So I think she should be acknowledged. The director.
Any announcements? Meeting closed.
Pursuant to section 2.2-3711, A 1 and 2 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 is amended. I move that the school board of the city of Richmond convene in closed session to 1, discuss prospective candidates for employment and the assignment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of employees of the division, including consideration of the performance of specific school board employees. 2, to consider the admission or disciplinary matters or any other matters that will involve the disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record concerning a Richmond Public School student.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Burke and seconded by Mr. Ball. All in favor? Any opposed?